Well, it's great to be together again with our 4 priorities study. We are in chapter 17, and we're starting a 3-week series on parenting, how to be a great parent. And that's kind of what I want to talk today, how to be a great parent. In fact, I'm going to do that today. The next video will be on that same subject, and then the third one will be on that also. One of the things I think I've learned over the years is, as a parent, you got to be loose to be a parent. And by that I mean you got to be able to kind of go with the flow. If I titled what I wanted to do today, I originally thought about how to be a great mom or dad. I guess I could have called this the anatomy of a father, or who retarded mama, or I don't know, because it's crazy being a parent. And one of the things I think I've learned over the years is you've got to have humor. You've got to laugh at yourself, with your children, at your children, about the whole thing of parenting. I've got so many stories that are just hilarious, but let me just give you one. When my son Luke was, I don't know how old he was, he must have been like, I guess, around 10 years old, 9 or 10. I was at the office one day and had a meeting with some people that were in my office, and my assistant came to the door and knocked on the door, and I knew that she wouldn't do that unless it was important, so I went to the door and she said, "You need to call home." So I went to another room and called home, and my wife answered the phone and she said, "You need to come home right away." I said, "What's the problem?" She said, "Well, Luke went outside, went next door and picked one of the bricks up off the neighbor's brick pile, came back in our yard and hit the top of the faucet, the outdoor faucet, and broke it. Well, water's just shooting up everywhere. The wind's blowing hard. It's blowing into the neighbor's windows. It's blowing in our windows. It's a nightmare, but I can't shut the water off." So I said, "Okay, I'll be right there." Thankfully, I lived only 5 or 6 minutes away, so I jumped in the car, buzzed home. I got that big pole that you have to use to stick in the ground to turn the water off, and so I did all that. My wife called a plumber, and I found out that evening that he came in and he fixed it and repaired everything in the faucet, and it only cost $500 to do that. It was a good deal. So anyway, that night my son is in bed, and I go up like I usually do to meet with him, and then I also would go to my daughter's room and meet with her. We'd have a little time to visit, catch up on the day, and pray. And so he was lying there, straight back in the bed. I mean, straight as a board. Wasn't moving, wasn't talking, looking straight up at the ceiling. He had just gotten out of the shower, his hair was slicked back. I went over and sat down by him. I said, "Son, it's been a tough day, hasn't it?" Didn't say anything. And I said, "Well, son, sometimes there are lessons we got to learn about life and about what we should do and shouldn't do." I mean, all of a sudden, he sat up in that bed, pointed through the wall to the other bedroom where his mama was, and he said, "Dad, you got to do something about that woman." I love it. Well, she had gotten all over his case. And again, another one of those beautiful stories about being a parent. Being a parent, mom or dad's tough. It's easy, fairly easy for most people biologically to become parents, but it's a whole different deal to be a parent emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. Those are tough assignments. So as we think about what we're going to talk about the next 3 weeks, the first thing I want to say is the influence on your children today is not always positive. And a study was done by Columbia University a number of years ago, and I don't have a graph here to show you, but if you drew a circle, what their study revealed was that the church, the local church, has a 1% impact on your home out of 100%. The school has a 16% impact, and the home has an 83% impact. Now, we might say, "Well, that's great." Well, stop for a moment. The question we have to ask is, what kind of impact is the home making? Because we're living in a culture now here in 2013 when the divorce rate is rampant. I grew up myself in a home where my mom and dad were divorced when I was around 2 years old. Then a stepfather came into my home, and he really wasn't equipped to be a father, and so that left a hole in my heart. So being a parent in our day and time is very, very challenging. And often there's very little preparation to be a parent. If you think about it, and especially if you come up in a home where there's been a divorce, or the model in the home of what it means to be an effective father or mother was a poor one, then how do you learn? How are you prepared to be an effective mom or dad? You know, I've always said maybe all of us need at least one throwaway kid. We need one to practice on, and then the rest of them, hopefully, we'll do a little bit better. But one of the questions is, who is shaping the lives and the values of your children? One survey was done by a popular teen magazine, and it revealed the following. It revealed that only 4.1% of the teenage girls in America feel they could go to their father to talk about a serious problem. Even more recently, USA Today published an eye-opening result of a study of teens under stress. When asked where they turned for help in a crisis, the most popular choice was music. The second choice was peers, and the third was television. Amazing as it may sound, moms were down the list at number 31, and dads were 48. So again, we say, okay, the family's making an 83% impact on our children, but again, you have to ask, is that positive or is that negative? What kind of influence or impact is that? Then there are the cultural dynamics that are deeply impacting our children today. In fact, I was doing some research just yesterday in terms of the influences on teenagers in America and our children. This probably won't be new to you, but it'd probably be good to recount some of these. But teens today generally face more issues, I believe, and problems as compared to peers of yesteryear. So the influences like music, celebrities, media, advertising, and you know, kids today pretty much want to buy what they wear and what they accumulate in terms of what they see celebrities buying and wearing and pushing. Then obviously the old stuff of drugs and alcohol, the lack of wholesome heroes, I think is another big one. Then I think the internet, my goodness, we could go on about this one for days. The influence of the internet negatively on kids is unbelievable. The pornography. You know, we think pornography is something that only older people are exposed to. Kids today are exposed to some of the most vile, destructive, negative images on the internet, and the kids that are exposed to that are younger and younger and younger every year. Middle school, before middle school, and it's shaping them for the rest of their lives. And so the internet, and then the pagan culture we live in, the lack of absolute truth, and by that I mean, you know, people basically today live by their own rules. So you make up the rules as you go, and you make the rules to accommodate to your convenience and for what you want and how you want to live in your life. There are also, I think, a lack of positive friendships in our day and time. And then if you look at the cultural dynamics in terms of the number of intact families, an intact family would be where there's a mom and a dad and one or more children. That's way less than 15% in our culture today. So again, there's a great number of changes in our culture over the years on the American family. The divorce rate in California a number of years ago, a study was done where they followed, I think it was 100 children from divorced families. I think about 20 years they followed them. At the end of 20 years, here were the results. 32% were done fine. 34% still were struggling as a result of those divorces. 34% had serious emotional problems. So 68% of those children out of those divorced families were deeply impacted as a result of those divorces. So a godly mom and dad are hard to find. In fact, I was reading an article by a man named Pierre Morel, and it was called Passive Men and Wild Women. And over the last few years, he said, I have seen in my office an increasing number of couples who share a common denominator. The man is active, articulate, energetic, usually successful in his work. But he is inactive, inarticulate, lethargic, and withdrawn at home. In his relationship to his wife and family, he is passive, and his passivity drives her crazy. And in the face of his retreat, she goes wild. So then you've got a mom and a dad, a husband and a wife that aren't showing up and being effective in their relationship. They're modeling something less than desirable for their family, before their children. And so again, you see the dynamic there in the home that's less than what it ought to be and what we would want it to be. I think, let me just kind of end up with this today, and then we'll pick this up again in our next study. But Will Rogers said it this way: Americans will join anything but their families. So, how do we join our families? What does it take to be an effective mom or dad? And we'll talk about that more next week. I'm going to, actually for a couple weeks. How can you be a more effective mother or father? But let me give you a thought as we close. Your children, to a large extent, are going to become like you. So if that's true, are you like you want them to become? You think about that real hard.